Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another edition of Fallen Flags of America. Whoops. So today we're doing something a bit different here. We are doing a locomotive. That's right. I told you guys that I might do this on this channel, specifically on the Fallen Flags of America series, which is what tonight's episode is. Video is. Anyway, so what we have here is one of the most famous steam locomotives on the Norfolk and Western. She was built for heavy hauling coal and fast freight. Norfolk and Western Class A, number 1218. So pictured here in 1987 at Lynchburg, Virginia, on one of the many excursions of the new, well, it was sort of new by 1987, Norfolk Southern Steam Program. But to give you some context on 1218, with it being a Class A, we're going to go over here to Trains Magazine. Now, I'm saying we're on Trains Magazine, so this doesn't get copyright or nothing. We don't need any of that. So, it says here the 1957 locomotive diagrams, blah, 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 blah. All right, the Class A, one of Norfolk and Western's finest these are articulated, are featured in the latest complements when introduced in the late 1930s, mainly for freight and heavy coal service. After two appeared for trials, being 1200 and 1201, eight more followed in 1936 and 1937. N&W erected 25 more during World War II using the alligator crosshead guides, and 8 more in 1949 to 1950. Note those last eight did not survive long in service, as they were quickly retired due to diesels by the mid to late 50s. They were delivered with tenders carrying 26 tons each of coal, or in Britain, that's 23.4 tons. And it's spelled with an E. Well, they don't say just T-O-N-S. They say T-O-N-N-E-S, which I don't understand. Anyway, between Williamson, Virginia and Portsmouth, Ohio, these engines had a tonnage rating of 3,000 tons of slow freight. Between Portsmouth and Columbus, they were rated at 5,200 tons of time freight and could pull passenger trains at 70 miles per hour, or 113 kilometers per hour. In addition to a high boiler pressure, a Class A had a cast steel frame and roller bearings on virtually all surfaces. The firebox was 157 square feet, or 5.7 square meters, of arch tubes and long combustion chamber, but no cylinders or sipons. Correlators or sipons. The last five of the type have a McGill multi-roller bearings on the side and main rods. The only articulators to take such friction reducing measures. Max consumption rates per hour were 7 tons, or 6.35 tons of coal, and burned 116,155 tons of gallons, pounds of water. Or technically in the U.S. that would be that might be gallons, I don't know. Or about 60% of a tender's capacity evaporated. Supplying such enormous steam generators were a Worthington Type 65A feed water heater and a standard modified Type BS mechanical stoker in the early 50s. According to the unnamed Fine Art Models author, N&W studies show that an auxiliary tender, also known as a canteen, would eliminate the need for water stops and increase gross ton miles per train, or GTM, by 31% on the 112-mile Canova district between Williamson, Virginia, Williamson and Portsmouth, Ohio. So the railway converted many 6,000-gallon tenders. As far as Loco Base can tell from the 1957 diagram, eliminating the coal space increased to 20,800 gallons. I'm just going to ignore the figures and read the American ones, or the British figures. Lightweight was 108,000 pounds, and loaded weight with that gallonage came to 281,400 pounds. Overall power system weight, engine tender, and auxiliary water tender combined topped out at 1,233,000 pounds. Over the Canova district, the N&W increased the A's tonnage ratings from 13,000 to 14,500 tons. Engine designs like these offer the best support for the continuation that steam could equal diesel in cost-effective rail transport, but no other railroads could offer the combination of the homegrown talent, facilities, and relatively cheap coal possessed by the N&W. Ultimately, the N&W had to relent. The Class A's were retired from 1958 through 1939. It's sad to see, but things have to come to an end eventually. And speaking of 1218, getting back to that, we will go to Wikipedia to read her story. So, 1218 was one of the Class A's built in 1943 at the N&W's Roanoke shops in Roanoke, Virginia, which now is gone. The whole yard, in case you haven't figured it out, has been removed due to PSR precision scheduled railroading, which I will cover in another video if you guys want me to, and was a part of the N&W's Class A fleet of fast freight locomotives. These locomotives mainly were used for freight and heavy coal service. Not really much else what they were used for. The 1218 was retired from regular service in 1959. It was later restored by the Norfolk Southern Railway, I want to say around 1983 to 86, and operated in excursion service from 87 to 1991. Unfortunately, after 1991, other candidates in the STEAM program meant that 1218 was sidelined. It now sits on static display at the Virginia Museum of Transportation at its home in Roanoke, Virginia, which, by coincidence, is where it was built. Unfortunately, the N&W 1218 is the sole survivor of Norfolk and Western's Class A locomotives, and is the only surviving 2662 steam locomotive in the world. While smaller than Union Pacific's more famous and more numerous Challenger class of the 4664 articulated locomotives, Norfolk and Western design racked up unmatched records of performance and service. During 1218's excursion career, it was the most powerful steam locomotive in the world, with a tractive effort of 125,897 pounds per force, well above Union Pacific Challenger 3985, the next strongest pulling operational steam locomotive, with a tractive effort of 97,300 pounds. I don't know what LBF stands for. Since May 2019, however, the N&W 1218 became the locomotive with the second highest tractive effort after Union Pacific 4014, which is the big boy that was just restored last year, and now Union Pacific is running excursions with it, which has a tractive effort of 135,375 pounds. Unlike any diesel-electric locomotives of a similar high tractive effort for starting heavy trains, but typical for a steam locomotive, it could easily run at 70 miles per hour or more. It didn't really run above 70 miles per hour, and the main reason was because they weren't meant to run at speeds, they were meant to haul tonnage. So in steam locomotives, you had two things. The bigger the locomotive, the more power. The smaller the basically, what I'm trying to say here is that the bigger the drivers, sometimes you would have better speed capabilities. But if the drivers were smaller, you would have better freight capabilities. For example, 1218 did not have the biggest drivers, it did have some big drivers, but there were other steam locomotives that had bigger drivers. My point being that um, power does not equal speed, and speed doesn't equal power. So here's a picture of it on one of its many steam excursion programs for Norfolk Southern in 1987. No idea where this was taken. Go to there. Oh, so let's go back to the start. In 1959, 1218 was retired. It was operated for a short while by the Union Carbide Co. in Charleston, West Virginia, where it was used as a stationary boiler at the chemical plant. In 1965, it was repurchased by the New England millionaire F. Nelson Blount, I think is how you say that, for his locomotive collection at Steamtown, USA in Bellows Falls, Vermont, which, by the way, is a very incredible museum, and I would highly recommend you visit it. 3 years later, its former owner, Norfolk and Western, did a cosmetic restoration on 1218 at their East End shops in Roanoke, Virginia, coincidentally the same place where it was built. After that, it was put on display at the Roanoke Transportation Museum in 1971. In 1982, the Norfolk and Western and Southern Railways merged to form the new Norfolk Southern Railway. The previous Norfolk Southern Railway was a short line but ended up being purchased into the Southern. On May 10, 1985, the NW 1218 was moved out of the park by a pair of NS diesels to be overhauled at the Norris Yard Steam Shop in Irondale, Alabama. After doing some testing and freight service, in 1987, it was moved under its own power for the first time in 28 years and operated for mainline excursion service on Norfolk Southern Steam Program, which lasted from, technically, it lasted from 87, I think, up to 98, roughly, but it was restarted, I think, around 2014, but it didn't last very long. Anyway, in 1990, 1218 traveled to St. Louis, Missouri, where it met up with steam locomotives such as St. Louis Southwestern 484 819, St. Louis San Francisco 482 1522, also nicknamed the Frisco, and Union Pacific 484 no 844 to participate in the National Railway Historical Society convention at the former Union Station. November 3rd, 1981, during Norfolk Southern's 25th anniversary of their steam program, 2018 joined other notable members, such as the Southern Railway MS class, also Mikado, 282 4501, fellow Norfolk and Western J class, number 611, which, to my knowledge, resides at the Strasburg Railway Museum, but correct me if I'm wrong, to Triplehead, a 28-car passenger excursion service from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Atlanta, Georgia. At Ottawa, Tennessee, the 4501 took a few coaches for a complete round trip, turning around at Cleveland, Tennessee. Afterwards, 611 and 1218 double-headed the rest of the trip to Atlanta. After the end of the 1991 season, the 1218 returned to Irondale, Alabama for an extensive overhaul to have its flues replaced and firebox repaired. The plan was to have the 1218 running again at the start of the 1996 season, but Norfolk and Western chairman David R. Good canceled the steam program in 1994 due to serious safety concerns, rising insurance costs, expense of maintaining steam locomotives, a yard switching accident in Lynchburg, Virginia with 9 cars, 611, and decreasing rail network ability. Sound familiar? Well, it's very closely related to what I consider the start of precision scheduled railroading. Anyway, after the Norfolk Southern Steam Program was concluded, the 1218 was partially reassembled and towed back to Roanoke to be stored at the East End shops in 1996, the year its overhaul was supposed to be completed. In 2001, the Norfolk Southern donated the 1218 to the city of Roanoke, Virginia, clearing the way for the engine to once again be put on display at the Virginia Museum of Transportation. In June of 2003, the museum completed its Clater Pavilion, and along with it, 1218 was ready to be put back on display. Now, for those of you who don't know who Mr. Clater is, he was a key figure in getting 1218 back and running. Anyway, after a cosmetic restoration by Norfolk Southern, the 1218 was towed to the Virginia Museum of Transportation June 11, 1983, and pushed back into its place next to N&W 611. April 2nd, 2012, the city of Roanoke officially donated a pair of engines to the Museum of Transportation. Virginia Museum of Transportation. Current status. Unfortunately, today, 1218 still sits at the Virginia Transportation Museum and is displayed, or was displayed, along with one of its fellow N&W, brothers, N&W Y6A class, number 2156, a 2882 on loan from the National Transportation Museum, St. Louis, Missouri, from 2015 to 2020. Which it has already went back to its old home, so now it's all alone, unfortunately, where they are star attraction in the museum's Clater Pavilion. 1218 has been cosmetically restored but not operational since the 1992 overhaul, which was started in 1992 but was never finished. Therefore, 1218 is unlikely to ever run again anytime soon. Although the undertaking would be very considerable, fans believe it to be capable of being returned to operation, with being incomplete boiler and firebox repairs being the primary scope of work remaining from its aborted overhaul. In 2007, Norfolk Southern pulled 1218 and 611 to its Roanoke shops for its 125th anniversary of celebration. N&W J-Class 611 resides at the museum when it is not running excursions, or at the North Carolina Transportation Museum in Spencer, North Carolina, where it was restored to operating condition 2015. The Virginia Transportation Museum owns 611 and completes the excursions as Norfolk Southern no longer operates a steam program, though they continue to recognize the excellent corporate public relations that derive from the excursions and have been very cooperative in coordinating such trips. In the meantime, 1218 continues to sit on that stat display inside the shed next to another former steam locomotive of the N&W. Unfortunately, I highly doubt, as much as I hate to say this, I highly doubt that she'll ever be returned to operation, but there's always hope. If anything, history has showed us that no matter how dark the times seem, there's always hope that things may return to how they once were. As for 1218, I don't know what may happen to her. It would be nice that she returned to operation, but I just don't know if it will happen. Now, I heard a story one time, and I'm looking through the archives here to see if it's true, that the N&W 1218 actually ran an excursion up what is considered the C&O and TP West, which is where I'm from, on that district. So it would have came through here. I just can't remember when it was. I'm looking. It may have not been photographed, but I do recall my grandfather telling me about it. But yes, this majestic locomotive, which was a very incredible locomotive and is one of my favorite locomotives among the N&W, unfortunately may no longer run again, but there is hope. I mean, 611 and another locomotive, which I haven't mentioned, which is a 280 consolidation, number 475, also of N&W origins, both still continue to keep the spirit of the Norfolk and Western alive, and I highly doubt that anything will happen to 1218, and she will always be there for generations to come. If you guys liked the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to turn the notifications bell on so you don't ever miss out on another one of my awesome videos. And as always, guys, I will see you later from L&M Productions. I'll see you somewhere out there in the high iron. This is L&M Productions, out.